Hello everyone, welcome back to Financial Discussion Channel. For this video, I'd like to discuss what you're supposed to do when you actually receive your paycheck. A lot of us actually has a lot of bad in terms of bad culture when we actually receive our paycheck. Okay, so basically this video will discuss all the good habit you're supposed to have when you actually receive your paycheck. In short, this video will discuss how can we actually manage our money after our payday. So basically this will be the objective of this video. Before I continue, guys, I'd like to urge you guys to help me by like this video. Give me a few seconds. Help me press the like button now. Please also encourage me by subscribing to this channel and turn on your notification bell. Once again, thank you so much for strong support. Imagine this, when you receive your paycheck, what will you do? Close your eye, imagine what will you do when you actually receive your paycheck, or maybe today is your payday. What will you do after this? A lot of us actually have a lot of bad behavior. For example, we may treat ourselves to a fine dining. Okay, so this probably will be the first thing that you do when you actually receive your paycheck. For some, they may go shopping and buy a new bag. Okay, so this is also again not the correct habit when you actually receive your paycheck. For some, maybe to reward yourself after the hard work, you will reward yourself by watching a movie. However, all these are classified as unhealthy behavior when you actually receive your paycheck. So you will ask, what will you do, okay, when you actually receive your paycheck? The first thing that you're supposed to do is to put the first 15% of your pay into saving, which means that you don't consider other things. The first cut is 15% go into saving. Okay, saving doesn't mean that you put inside your bank. This saving means that you actually will do some form of investment. So the first thing that you're supposed to do when you actually receive your paycheck is to cut 15% into saving. Let me discuss why. Okay, so basically, when we actually save first and we actually spend later, okay, so in fact, this is a very effective way to grow our saving. Okay, so definitely it involves a lot of commitment and also discipline when we actually set aside a fixed amount each time when we actually get the pay. So therefore, in order to avoid any tension, okay, so basically we need to keep this money into a separate bank account. This definitely require a lot of discipline. It will be good if you can put 20% into saving, okay, but the minimum should be at least 10%. Okay, so therefore I suggest 15%, okay, in between 10 and 20, 15% will go into saving. So this is the first thing that we need to do when we actually receive the paycheck, is to spend 15% to go into our saving. Let me explain why. Okay, so I have two gentlemen, Chris and Jeff. They basically have some form of saving. So Chris start saving at 20 years old, while Jeff start saving at 40 years old. Basically, what they do is basically they invest $5,000 every year. So after 10 years, as you can see from here, after 10 years, and with the compounding interest effect, Chris, okay, will be able to receive about 1.3 million at the age of 65, while Jeff, okay, basically will receive something not even half a million at the age of 65. So therefore, with this, you can see that why it is important to start saving as soon as possible. As you can see from here, Chris actually start saving at the age of 20, while Jeff probably start the saving too late at the age of 40. And you can see that the outcome is actually is a very alarm difference between these two. Basically, not even half. So therefore, urge you to start saving as soon as possible. Another reason, okay, let's discuss on the spending pattern first. Okay, so what we actually do when salary come in, what we supposed to do. Okay, so this is actually what we supposed to do. So the first thing, as I mentioned earlier on, we should save first and basically spend what is left over. Okay, so the first thing is cut 15%, okay, into saving first. Then we will use the rest for must pay bill, and then basically the last will be going into the lifestyle expenditure. This is a lot of bad behavior. Basically, what we actually do, okay, we spend first, and maybe if we have some, then we will save this sum for the saving. Okay, so basically, this is what I mentioned that is actually a very bad behavior. So basically, the sequence for this so-called this behavior is actually they will first do all the must pay bills, and then they basically will contribute to the lifestyle expenditure first. Saving, if there's some leftover, then we will have some saving. If there's no leftover, then we will not have any saving at all. So basically, in short, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to save first, and then we will do the focus on the must pay bills, and then we consider our lifestyle expenditure. Okay, so basically, this is why we need to have 10% or 15% to saving. Okay, so basically there is a saying, it's not about how much you make. Okay, you can make a lot of money, but if you spend all of it, then you will be in the same situation. Okay, so basically this is the saying, it's not about how much you make, it's about how you manage what you make. Okay, so this is very important. So therefore, if you are disciplined and you are very committed, then you will be able to gain financial independence pretty soon. But if you are not disciplined and you are not committed, then you basically will enter into the rat race, which will go on and on and on. Okay, so basically this is to do a quick conclusion. The first thing that you're supposed to do, first 15% go into saving, which means investment. Next, what you're supposed to do will be the next 10%. Okay, so you're supposed to do this emergency funding. Okay, so imagine this. Okay, maybe there is always a situation that you need money urgently because, for example, your car, the tire have some issue and you need to change the tire. Okay, so basically you probably will fall sick and you need the money to pay for your hospital bill. So therefore, you need to have some form of emergency funding. Okay, so while you're supposed to save up this emergency funding, okay, so you need to sit down and plan for your 1 month of essential expenditure, which means that this is important. Without any one of them, you will not be able to alive. Okay, so basically this is what you need to do. Okay, so compile your 1 month of essential expenditure. For me, okay, basically we may have some form of mortgage or some rental to pay. Okay, so if let's say we don't have this, then we don't have a place to live. We also need to do some form of grocery. Okay, so transport, we need to take so-called transport, okay, for your work, for your school, etc. So basically, you need to plan this carefully also. Utility is also important. So same for the food. Basically, from here, you can see that this will be my 1 month of essential item that I need. Okay, so basically, the amount is actually mentioned over here. So what we need to do is we sum up all the 1 month of essential expenditure. Okay, for example, this is for the mortgage and rent, this will be for the grocery, this will be for the transport, this will be for the utility, this will be the food. So basically, I add up total I need 3,600. Okay, so basically, this will be the amount that I need, okay, in order to survive my 1 month, okay, of essential expenditure. What I supposed to do, okay, I supposed to have 3 months of emergency funding or 6 months of emergency funding. So how I am going to get all this number will be basically 3 months multiplied by 3,006, which is 10,800, and then 6 months multiplied by 3,006, which is 21,600. Okay, so basically this is slightly tricky. Depend, okay, on your situation. For example, if you are single, you still live with your parent, probably you just need to have 3 months of emergency funding will be enough. However, if you have a family, okay, so I think 3 months is actually may not be able to tide you over. So therefore, strong recommendation is to have at least 6 months of emergency funding. So basically, like I mentioned, it depends on your situation. So basically, you need to save enough to have this emergency funding. Because if let's say you're going to withdraw from your saving, probably that period is not a good time for you to do withdrawing. Then you may have some issue. So therefore, urge you to have some form of emergency funding to tide you over in case some unforeseen situation actually happen. Okay, so basically this is my recommendation. 10% of your pay supposed to go into your emergency fund. Okay, so like I illustrated earlier on. However, once you save enough of your emergency fund, let's say if you save enough, you have this 10,800, or let's say if you have saved enough, this 21,600, then you probably don't need this emergency fund anymore. So this 10% can go to the rest of the place. For example, I may consider 5% more to go into the saving. Okay, the rest, probably this 3% more, this another 2% more, which I will discuss further. So the moment that you save enough of your emergency fund, then you don't need this 10% anymore. Then you can consider to shift this 10% either to saving or to the other, which I will explain shortly. Okay, so basically this is what you're supposed to do. Okay, after you receive your paycheck, another 10% supposed to go into the saving for the emergency fund. But once you have enough of emergency fund, then you can reconsider to redeploy the amount of money into different segment over here. So next, before I continue, guys, this is very important for me. Urge you to help me by like this video. When more you guys help me to like this video will have a better chances to reach out to a larger audience. So guys, help me press the like button now. Please also consider to subscribe to this channel if you have learned something from this video. Please also remember to turn on your notification bell. Okay, so let me continue. Okay, what is next after this 10% into the emergency fund? Will be your 65% will go into your money expenditure. Okay, what does money expenditure means? Okay, so basically this is the money expenditure of a Singaporean. You can see that the majority actually go into the housing and utilities and also food and transport. So basically this is what we need to spend every month. 65% of our pay, okay, will be on our money expenditure, as you can see from here. Okay, firstly, we need to know, okay, how we actually spend our money. Okay, so therefore, a very simple way to track your spending is by using a budgeting app. Okay, so if not alternative, you can simply just jot down what you bought, when you bought it, and how much you actually pay for the item. Okay, so basically, this is a very conventional way. Nowadays, there is a lot of electronics way to capture what you actually buy, when you actually buy, and how much it is. So basically, by tracking, then you know where your money actually go to. Basically, this is what it means here. Okay, but before you actually start tracking your expenditure, take a honest look at how you spend your money. So basically, there are actually two categories: needs versus wants. Okay, so the needs are what we call the life essential, things that you can't live without. Okay, for example, we can't live without food, we can't live without any housing, we can't live, okay, let's say the utility, the power and water cut off. So basically, this is what we classify as needs. Wants are things that we actually desire. Okay, so they might be slightly more expensive, okay, but it doesn't mean that it's better. For example, we can have a better food, we can have a bigger house, etc. Okay, so basically, these are just the alternative to your needs or simply non-essential item. Okay, for example, we will always like to add another pair of shoes to our collection. Okay, so a general rules is always prioritize spending on your needs over your wants. Okay, make sure your needs are all covered before you go into your wants. Okay, what you want can actually wait until you meet your financial goal. Okay, so therefore, in short, you need to classify the expenditure as needs or wants. Needs, then therefore, you have no choice but to spend the money. The wants, you probably need to think so-called second time, third time, whether you want to buy that particular item or not. Okay, so for example, okay, thinking about something that you actually bought recently, do you know how much you spend on it? Okay, so was it a need or a want? Was it an essential item or you just buy it on an impulse? Do you usually buy things at first sight, which means that you something catch your eye, you just buy it without much consideration, or you actually will do some form of comparing the price to make sure that you actually get the best deal. Okay, so if your spending habit are keeping you from achieving your goals, then I strongly urge you to do something to control them. If not, you will be continue the rat race. Next, for example, if you are spending too much, what are the ways that you can actually reduce your expenditure? Okay, so these are some ideas. For example, we can change to house brands when we actually do the shopping for food or essential household item. Okay, so basically house brand typically they are so-called cheaper. Okay, because they are just so-called, for example, some house brand they actually may a little bit lack of in terms of the quality, okay, but definitely can meet our needs. Next will be opt for bus or train instead of taxi. Okay, so basically, when you actually travel, okay, or transport by taxi is definitely many times expensive as compared to the public bus or train. Okay, stop buying items that you don't need. Okay, so have more home cooked meals instead of eating out. Review your money subscription that you may not need anymore. Okay, so basically these are the few things that you can actually do in order to reduce your expenditure. Okay, so basically next okay will be classified as enjoyment fund. What is actually enjoyment fund? Okay, for example, Singaporean like to tour. Okay, so basically this can be considered as enjoyment fund. Okay, so maybe you would like to buy some new clothing. Probably you want to reward yourself with a new laptop or a mobile phone and maybe some fine dining. Okay, so basically this is what we classify as enjoyment fund. Okay, for example, okay, you probably may not be having enough to go a tour every year, but what you can actually do is basically every alternative year, then you go for a tour. The rest of the money you can spend on either one of these. Okay, it doesn't mean that every year you need to buy a new handphone, right? Or a new laptop. So basically, you need to strategize what you actually want to spend under your enjoyment fund. Like I mentioned earlier on, it doesn't mean that every year I need to spend on all this. You can prioritize your enjoyment fund, which is more important for you and your family. Then you will have a better chances to reach financial independence. So basically, I would like to do a quick conclusion. What you're supposed to do when you actually receive your paycheck. So the first thing that you need to do is you must be disciplined. The first thing that you do when you actually receive your paycheck is to cut 15% to go into your saving. Next, you need to save enough of emergency fund. Okay, so basically 10% of your paycheck is supposed to go into your emergency fund. But once you save enough, let's say 3 months or 6 months, then you can redeploy this money into saving, into money expenditure, or maybe enjoyment fund. Is up to you. But I strongly urge you to go at least 5% to saving, and the rest go into money expenditure or enjoyment fund. Okay, so basically this is the next step that you're supposed to do. 10% into emergency fund. Next will be your money expenditure. Okay, so basically this is what you always need to spend every month. Okay, so basically this should be under 65%. Be very disciplined. Okay, so basically reduce those unnecessary spending in order to so-called keep this under 65% of your paycheck. Last but not least, 10% for your enjoyment fund. Okay, for example, your family will have a tour every year. Like I mentioned earlier on, probably you can afford not to tour every year. Maybe every alternate year that you have a tour, okay, the rest of the money you probably can buy some new clothing, buy some new TV, laptop, etc. With this, I'd like to end my discussion. Please help to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Once again, thank you so much for strong support. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much.